And GZERO's coverage from Munich continues. Here is a provocative question for you. How corrupt is your country? You're about to find out. Daniel Eriksson is the CEO of Transparency International. Tell us a little bit about your mission and work.
Thanks for having me, Tony. So the vision of Transparency International is to achieve a world free of corruption. We're an NGO working in about 115 countries around the world, and we work according to a principle of what we call steal, hide, enjoy. We're blocking the corrupt from stealing, hiding, and enjoying their proceeds. We're doing that through advocacy. We're an advocacy-oriented organization. And through our network, our global network, we do advocacy on a national, regional, and global level in order to achieve that.
So you rank countries on an index from 0, which is the worst, to 100. What are the factors that contribute to that score?
So the Corrupt Practices Index, the CPI, which is what we're most famous for, although it's only one small piece of all the work that we do globally, measures corruption in the public sector. We do that by having 13 composite indicators that we're not developing. We're taking these from other institutions like the World Bank, the WEF, and so forth. And we use these scores to build a composite score of the perceived perception in the public sector.
Let's name names. What are the most corrupt countries?
So as we did with our CPI last year, we showed that conflict and corruption goes hand in hand. So Syria is one example of a very corrupt country. Yemen is another one. But there's obviously countries that experience conflict that have managed to still do well, like Ukraine. But in general, at the very bottom on the list, you find the countries with the biggest struggles in conflict.
What would be the factors so Ukraine is probably a good example, right? There have been very clear cases of corruption. What do you mean by they still do well?
Because it's quite encouraging, Ukraine as a country, but there's other examples as well, like Estonia, Lithuania, where one take corruption very seriously. Because when we were founded 30 years ago as an organization, it was on a pretext that corruption was largely a problem of the global south, as we called it back then. It was a hindrance to sustainable development. Now, corruption is developing into another space, and it's the reason why we're here is that it's become a geopolitical security phenomena. And in that, we see that countries that are bordering to Russia, predominantly, like Ukraine and the others I mentioned, they see it as a matter of fighting for their survival. And when you have that in you as a citizen, because it really needs to be the citizens that sees corruption as something that is taboo, then you can take decisions and move forward in a way that is not possible, it seems like. At least there's not the will in many other liberal democracies to do so.
I'm sure there are plenty of people who are watching this right now thinking, where's the United States on your index?
So the United States rank 24 at a score of 69. Which, I mean,
is that good? That doesn't sound good, but
it should be a lot better. I should give some kudos to the United States because the administration has done some really good steps over the last couple of years. But those steps are mainly outside of what we measure. So money laundering, enablement, and these kind of sectors where the corrupt in the past have, and still continue to do, but with more difficulties, transfer their money and their proceeds to the US to invest in real estate and other sectors. There is legislation that have come in play that makes that harder for them. But at the same time, those type of regulations are not measured in our CPI.
And your team is here in Munich talking about something called strategic corruption. We've been talking about within nations, but this is something more geopolitical. Can you explain it?
So, as I mentioned earlier on, it's not new, it's always been around, but it's become much clearer, particularly as Russia has made this one of their key tools in achieving foreign policy objectives, where they use corruption to go in and bribe officials or to in one or another way erode the public discourse to create polarization in society. And they do so using corrupt means. I mean, our definition of corruption is the abuse of entrusted power for personal gain. And if you, as an individual, get elected based on funding that you receive from a foreign country, then that definition is fulfilled, because you're not stepping into that role for the best of the country, or on your platform you're linked to that foreign donor. And that kind of activities, the strategic corruption, which is quite complicated. I mean, it touches on propaganda and misinformation, disinformation as well. It is a new phenomenon for us, although it has existed for a long time. And we need to look at how it can be addressed, because there is a temptation in countries to use undemocratic means to counter this, which would be very unfortunate, as then you actually hurt your own ambition in pushing democracy forward.
You're going to be pretty busy this year. 2024, literally half the world's population heads to the polls. How vast is your network? And are you able to track this across every country, some countries?
We can't be everywhere, and our work is mainly preventative. When an election happens, we in various countries we continue to work closely, but we're focusing on advocacy and improving regulation. That is our main goal. But we have 100+ chapters around the world which are legally independent, that uses different means and approaches in order to achieve our common objectives. We wish we could be much more impactful and that we had all the resources of the world, but we have to really focus on where we can have the greatest impact towards our goal.
Daniel Eriksson, thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Tony.